back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey, man, this time we're going to do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Usually coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but tonight we're doing the podcast from my home here in Freehold, New Jersey. But that doesn't change the fact that it's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, normally powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good evening, everyone. I am, of course, Mike M3 Rosansky, coming to you on this Monday evening, the 30th of December, the final Monday of the month. Hell, the final Monday of 2024. Hope you all had a very happy holiday season. Hell, I think a couple of the holidays, Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, are still going on. So if that is the case, hope you're enjoying your holiday season for those who are celebrating it. And for those of you who celebrated Christmas last Wednesday, I hope it was a very pleasant, celebratory, relaxing, enjoyable day for you. If you're a football fan, it wasn't the most relaxing of days because, let's face it, the football on Christmas, by and large part, sucked. The Kansas City Chiefs, even despite missing one of their three best players, Chris Jones, kicked the teeth down the Pittsburgh Steelers' throats. There was never really a time after the first quarter where you felt like the Steelers had a shot because they just kept kicking themselves right in the rear ends with a lot of the mistakes that they were making, whether it be the interception that Russ threw late in the first quarter down in the red zone, or Freiermuth's fumble in the fourth quarter when they were still within two scores. I think you'd be fooling yourselves if you thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers were in that game. And then we get to the 4:30 game, and that was even more hot garbage. That was even more of a disaster for multiple teams, whether you want to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers side of things, the fact that they've now lost 3 games in a row and have lost control of the AFC North, or if you're a Houston Texans fan, even despite the fact that your team has made the postseason already, that was not a representative showing for your squad, even being at home on Christmas Day. The best thing you had going for you is that you had Beyonce come out and do this Super Bowl worthy halftime show. Other than that, it was a miserable existence to be a Houston Texans fan against Lamar and company. Lamar coming out there trying to calm the masses down and saying, whoa, hold on there for a second. Let's calm down this Josh Allen for MVP talk and realize that I'm the reigning, defending league MVP. I've still got something to say about this. I've statistically had a better season than he has, and I'm doing so with less than representative wide receivers, just as Allen is doing. And outside of that one moment in the second quarter, when Derrick Henry got tackled in the end zone for a safety, the Texans getting the only 2 points they could scratch across the board late Wednesday afternoon into evening, there was never a time where it looked like the Texans showed any life. The one chance they had on the following drive, you've got 4th and goal after Marlon Humphreys seemingly tried to hand a touchdown to the Houston Texans with his pass interference penalty that moved the ball up to the 10-yard line after that fourth down play. Joe Mixon, who the only productive thing he seemed to do on the day was getting in a pregame fight with the Baltimore Ravens, some of the backups, including backup quarterback Josh Johnson. He gets stuffed at the 1-yard line. And after that, you never heard from the Texans offense again. I've said this for weeks. I've been worried about this Texans offense. They're taking on a lot of water now. It's a one thing that they've lost Stephon Diggs early in the season, but you could emotionally recover from that. But this late in the year, to have suffered the blow that they took on with losing Tank Dell 10 days ago might be something that they can't overcome. They might be, we have it usually once every year, that one division winner where everybody, wild card winners or the other division winners, say, give us them as our first round matchup. Give us them, whether it's at their place or at our place. You have that same thing in the NFC with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers somewhat, where no one believes in them. No one thinks they stand a chance. But at least in Tampa's case, they could score points with the best of them. You watch them the last couple of weeks outside of that Dallas game, they've been running up some scores on people. This Texans team is treading a lot of water offensively and is not looking like they're going to really survive this. Looks like they're going to be a dead team in the water once you enter the postseason. And the postseason is usually a joyous time for me because it's really the only time of the year I feel like I'm watching real football, because all of the postseason games are nationally televised. I don't have to worry about another Jets embarrassment, at least for a couple of weeks after this Sunday, until they hire a new head coach, likely before they hire a new general manager. I could just sit there, put my feet up on the couch, have a beer in my hand, and have stress-free football. And when you look at this postseason, you look at the AFC side of things. Unfortunately, we're still living in a world where the AFC postseason looks like it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs Invitational. And this is something that is going to hang over Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen until they conquer that demon, until they conquer that dragon. They've had chances each of the last 2 years in their buildings and have not been able to overcome this team, have had to watch this group, whether it's a dominant offense 2 years ago or last year mostly being led by their defense, come into their building on their road to another Super Bowl win and leave them heartbroken, leave them depressed. And it doesn't matter how many MVPs Lamar wins or if Josh Allen wins the MVP this year, until they get by Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, no one's going to stop talking about it. Though one quarterback in their conference that has been able to overcome that is Joe Burrow. And unfortunately, it looks like we may not see Joe Burrow in this postseason, because while he's been remarkable this year, statistically, he's been better than both of these guys. And if you're going based on just statistics alone, Joe Burrow is the league MVP. He's going to win the quarterback triple crown with yards, completion percentage, and touchdowns. But in my view of things, I've always felt that you have to be in the postseason, that winning does matter when it comes to this award. you guys know my stance on this when it comes to Major League Baseball. I feel like they try to make it too complicated. They try to think too much about it. That's why we've seen so many nonsensical MVP awards handed out in the American League over the last decade to Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani when the Angels weren't anywhere near playoff contention after the month of May. You do have to account for those first 4 to 5 weeks of the season. I don't care that the Bengals defensively are 29th in the league or have the 30th offensive line production in the NFL. Winning does have to matter here. And while Joe Burrow was awesome again on Saturday night in their overtime victory over the Denver Broncos, it did take some unlucky bounces from the Broncos and some sheer brilliant performances from that big three in Cincinnati. A big three that, who knows, this could be their last stand coming up against the Steelers on Saturday night. I do think they will get by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the problem that they run into is the math doesn't exactly work in their favor. They need not only a win, but they need help to get there. They're going to need to beat the Steelers, and then for both the Broncos and the Miami Dolphins to lose. And you look at what the Broncos have coming up. They're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are not going to play anybody. You've got Chris Jones banged up with calf injury. He's not going to play. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, they're not going to play. Why would you risk it? Andy Reid knows that he'd be the dumbest person in the world. He'd be letting Raheem Morris off the hook for being the dumbest coach in the league. We'll get to that in a minute. As far as if he let those guys play and that they happen to get hurt and get their postseason chances. It doesn't matter how many more Eras Tour concerts Taylor Swift sings. If they get hurt, those guys are screwed. So the Bengals may be on the outside looking in when it comes to the postseason. So that's why I look at this MVP race and I've got it down to 3. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Saquon Barkley. You look at each one of these guys, they each have their merits that work in their favor, especially the quarterbacks, because we know that this has largely been a quarterback-favored award over the years. But at the same time, there's no denying the change that Saquon Barkley has provided the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles had as bad an end of the regular season into the postseason as you could have last year. They went in crawling. They gave away the division to the Cowboys, got their teeth kicked down their throats by the Buccaneers in the first round. You had all of the Big Dom nonsense that was going on. And that they needed a spark. They needed something at a time where Nick Sirianni was facing a lot of heat. Jalen Hurts, people were questioning how well could he do now without his offensive coordinator. And they bring in Saquon Barkley, and that has changed that offense. They had good backs before, but they have now brought in a guy that is racing toward legendary status with the 9th 2,000 rushing yard season in NFL history. And I know what a lot of the stat geeks out there are saying, a lot of the people that love fantasy football, love records, love Madden the video game are saying, they're screaming after Barkley put up another $160 yesterday against the Cowboys, seeing now he's going to be playing the New York Giants on Sunday afternoon, saying, go for it. Go for Eric Dickerson's record. Shove it to your former team. Shove it to Eric Dickerson, who's being the old man, get off my lawn today, saying that he hopes Barkley doesn't break his record. But we know Saquon Barkley's history. Saquon Barkley, especially during his time with the Giants, was injury prone. He's a guy that's torn an ACL in the past, And he dealt with some injury issues in his final season with the Giants. Now, that was a different time. That was a time where he was lucky to even be getting yardage, considering what a sieve the Giants' offensive line is. Now he's behind the best offensive line in football, and they would love nothing more than to get him this record. But I'm about winning championships. I'm about the big picture. And it doesn't matter how egotistical Nick Sirianni is, how great he is, or at least he thinks he is, as a schemer. He knows that he would never be able to live it down if Barkley went out there on Sunday and got hurt. Look, his quarterback's already dealing with the concussion issues after the hits that Hurts took about a week ago. He didn't play on Sunday. Hell, your backup quarterback, Kenny Pickett, got hurt. And you had to go to a third-string quarterback in Tanner McKee against the Cowboys in the second half. You're just lucky that the Cowboys have nothing to play for, and everybody on that team has seemingly given up at this point. They were turning the football over at will against the Eagles yesterday afternoon. So while you would love Barkley under normal situations to get that record, the best course of action is to let him rest. Let him have that 1 week break, because you're not getting the number one seed in the NFC. That's going to be decided in what may turn out to be the greatest consequential Sunday night football game in NFL history. And I got plenty of opinion on that coming up. A lot of opinions to give you today. Give you some thoughts on the remaining playoff races in the NFL that will be decided this coming weekend. Some thoughts on the decision Cam Ward made this weekend. The Giants getting what could be a costly win yesterday, and mixing some baseball along the way as well. So there's a lot I want to get to over the course of this hour podcast. Glad you guys could be joining me this evening. And as I tell you, each and every single Monday, please sit back, relax, help put your feet up if you feel like it, and continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
We are now 2 days away, depending on when you're listening to the podcast version of this. If you're watching live, thank you as usual. But we are now less than 2 days away from January 1st, the start of the new year. And I would like to make a New Year's resolution for everyone out there. Whether you're someone that covers the NFL for a living, whether you're an NFL fan, whether you're someone that's just a casual viewer, someone that only pays attention to the NFL for fantasy football league purposes, it's just a small, tiny little request. Can we stop overrating Kyler Murray? When is enough enough? When are we going to stop viewing him as, oh, he was a former number one overall pick? He was a former Heisman Trophy Award winner in college. The guy has made the postseason just one time in his career. He has one double-digit win season in his career. And when you put him in the big spot in his career, he usually comes up lame. You look at over the course of Kyler Murray's career, between the months of November, December, and January, he has 13-28. In his last 19 games over the course of those 3 months, he is 6-13. And his latest gift to everyone was on Saturday night when he gave his team, the Arizona Cardinals, no chance against the Los Angeles Rams. If you were a Seattle Seahawks fan sitting there on the edge of your seat, hoping to have some kind of playoff chances in Week 18, you were greatly disappointed. Because in those final 2 drives, where those are the moments that determine who's elite, who's a top-tier quarterback, and who's just another guy, Kyler Murray got picked off twice in the red zone, including he had 1st and goal with 40 seconds left in this game. An opportunity to be a hero, an opportunity to give the Cardinals a chance at having a winning record. They weren't going to make the postseason. They weren't going to be playing in the month of January. But despite a disappointing end to their year, would give themselves at least a fighting shot heading into the final couple of weeks of this season to have something good to head into 2025, have a winning record to end this year. He comes up lame. And now if you were a Rams fan, you're like, thank you very much, Kyler Murray. You knew then going into Sunday that all you needed was 3 out of 5 victories to go your way. You needed 3 of the Bills, Browns, Vikings, Commanders, and 49ers to win, to have the strength of victory over the Seattle Seahawks, no matter what would happen in Week 18. So this was something that disappointed Seahawk fans everywhere, something that was a gift for Los Angeles Ram fans, and left Cardinal fans saying, damn, we might be in quarterback hell here. We might be in a situation, we're paying this guy all this money and he can't come up in the big spot. You're joining teams like the Browns with the nonsense they have to deal with Deshaun Watson, having an immature quarterback that you're paying a crap load of money to. And the Los Angeles Rams weren't the only SoFi Stadium team that clinched a playoff appearance on Saturday. The Chargers also took care of business on their own right, blowing out the New England Patriots. Now, taking all hope away from the Miami Dolphins that they would pull the ultimate choke job, pull a situation that now the Dolphins are in a really no-win spot here. They're in the same spot that the Cincinnati Bengals are in, where you have to hope that the Kansas City Chiefs backups come to play against the Broncos on Sunday afternoon. You have to hope that the Chiefs have this uprising where Carson Wentz thinks it's 2017 all over again and goes out there, puts up an MVP level performance against that Broncos defense and allows you a chance. Like, the Dolphins, I think, will win on late Sunday because they're going up against a Jets team that, if you watch them yesterday, they've already given up on the season. They were already looking at their off season, and some of their young players are questioning what direction this organization is even going in. The Bengals, I think, will defeat the Steelers on Saturday night, but all of those are going to come up for none because I don't believe this Broncos team is going to lose to the Chiefs. Now, we've seen crazy things in Week 18. That's why it's always the most unpredictable week in the NFL. The 2 weeks that are always unpredictable, Week 1 and Week 18. Because in Week 1, you're still trying to figure out who's good. There's still those surprise teams. But in Week 18, you're not going to see a lot of stars playing for teams that clinch. You don't know who on certain teams is really going to show up, who's going to give a damn. That's why I always say you've got to show a sense of urgency in sports. You can't rely on somebody else to help you. You can't rely on saying, oh, that this will happen, this will happen. We just got to take care of our own business. No, from the moment they say go on the season, you have to take care of your own business. You have to get the job done. That's why I have no sympathy for these teams that fall a game short when they see a Kansas City Chiefs or a Philadelphia Eagles or someone along those lines decide to rest starters, whether it be for the full game or for the second half in week 18. You should have got your business done in September and October as well, and not waited for after Thanksgiving to think that that's when the football season starts. And I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. Raheem Morris has got to be the dumbest human being in the NFL right now. He has taken Matt Eberflus off the hook for stupidity in the second half of this season. Matt Eberflus, who's been long gone in Chicago, and while Raheem Morris is in no danger of getting fired, Falcon fans may never forgive him for the sins he pulled last night on Sunday Night Football. Because you are able to hold the Washington Commanders to a field goal on their final drive. Michael Penix shows a growing of age moment, charges right down the field right after the 2-minute warning, and ties up this game. You get one of the quickest 3-and-outs I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. And with 40 seconds left to go in this game, Raheem Morris has the ultimate brain fart. Because you had your chance to put yourselves in a more comfortable position heading into week 18. You got the ball, 40 seconds left, you got 2 timeouts. Penix completes a nice pass down the field to Darnell Mooney, sets you up with good field position at midfield with 32 seconds left to go. You're thinking, hey, call a timeout here. You've got 2 remaining. No, he just lets the time keep ticking and ticking and ticking away. By the time they finally get up to the line and snap the ball, there's 17 seconds left to go. And Penix throws one deep to Mooney that goes out of bounds. Then he tries hitting Drake London up the middle. That's incomplete. And after that, that's when he decides to use his first 2 timeouts remaining, not realizing, Raheem Morris, you don't get to take these timeouts into overtime. You either use them or they're gone. They disappear. They're non-existent anymore. And by the grace of the football gods, which never usually benefit the Atlanta Falcons, the Commanders commit 18 yards worth of penalties that put you within these days reasonable kicking distance for Riley Patterson to come out there to hit a game-winning field goal with 2 seconds to go. Wasn't much wind down there in Landover last night, and he came up short on a 56-yard field goal attempt. After that, you never saw the football again. You could have used those 2 timeouts, allowed Penix, who was starting to cook there a little bit in the second half. Hell, I thought at times looked a little bit better than Jaden Daniels throughout this game, especially with some of the pressure that was coming down on Daniels with that Falcons pass rush in the first half. Put yourself in a position where maybe instead of a 56-yard field goal, he's kicking a, 35 to 40-yard field goal with time expiring. But you never saw the football again after that. The Commanders turned away that clock in overtime, and with about 2 minutes and change left to go, Daniels hits Zach Ertz for a walk-off touchdown, leaving Falcon fans saying, why us? Why are we dealing with this? We finally benched Kirk Cousins. We have a chance to make the postseason, and now we've got to be relying on us not just beating the Panthers, who have been feisty in the second half of the season, but we've got to rely on the New Orleans Saints to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't care how heated the rivalry has been with the Tampa Bay Bucs over the years, especially with certain members of that defense up against Mike Evans. I severely doubt that the Saints are going to view their trip to Tampa as anything but a vacation heading into their off season. You saw the ruthless beatdown that the Bucs put on the Panthers yesterday. This could be more of the same this coming Sunday. But the thing I felt the best about, the thing that tugged at my heartstrings and that had me smiling yesterday, was the performance by my guy, and I still call him my guy, even though he was not developed well by the New York Jets, but has handled himself with class, has rebounded from what was an awful situation, from multiple teams that gave up on him, and now at 27 years old is looking like the third overall pick in the draft that many people expected him to be. How can you not feel good for Sam Darnold? In most other years, Sam Darnold would be a favorite for the MVP award. The performance he's putting up for the Vikings this year. The fact that he has risen this team up, and I know they have some very elite weapons there with Jefferson and Addison, but no one expected anything out of Darnold this year. Hell, we thought prior to the preseason when J.J. McCarthy got hurt that at some point Darnold was going to pass the baton to J.J. McCarthy and that it was going to be his team going forward. And who knows, it might still be at some point in the future. But to see Sam Darnold thriving in the fashion that he is, and seeing Kevin O'Connell showed the confidence that he had in them. Remember, this team was up 27-10 midway through the fourth quarter. And then the Packers start catching fire with this ferocious comeback. And even despite that, even despite momentum on the Packers side, O'Connell shows trust in Sam Darnold, allowing him to complete two vital first downs on that final drive. First, with the bootleg pass to C.J. Ham, and then on 3rd and 2, he's running out of the pocket and throws a pass to Cam Akers that Akers is barely able to snag off the ground to lock up this game. To see Darnold rush into that locker room, those guys, just celebrate him, just mob him in the fashion he was. And the smile on O'Connell's face as he's standing in the corner watching this kid that so many people had given up on. So many people thought his career was dead, have this career renaissance, and now not just make himself a lot of money this coming off season, but put the Vikings in a position where they've got the greatest game of consequence on Sunday Night Football coming up this week. Because I don't think we've ever seen a game in the final week of the season where it could just flip the balance of power in the NFC. Because not only is it the NFC North on the line when the Vikings go to Detroit to play the Lions, but the 1 seed in the NFC will be decided. You realize you're either going to have a first round bye and only have to play 2 games at home to reach the Super Bowl, or you're going to have to play on the road the entire postseason, starting with having to likely play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round of the playoffs. And the Buccaneers, unlike the Texans in the AFC, the Buccaneers can score with anybody. Yes, they're missing members of that offense. They've had some injuries throughout the year. But Mike Evans is as great a wide receiver as we have in this sport. And we've seen Baker Mayfield have this same rise from the dead career resurgence that Sam Darnold is having here in his late 20s. You look at this NFC landscape in the playoffs, and any one of these teams realistically could come out of the NFC and be the representative in the Super Bowl. There's not this one big Goliath that the teams have to mentally overcome like you have in the AFC for the Ravens and the Bills to mentally, not just physically, but mentally overcome the demon that is the Chiefs that hangs over them. Anybody in this NFC could catch fire in this postseason and go on some kind of run. You look at the Rams defense the last several weeks. While offensively they've been really puka or bust, defensively they've been beating teams into the ground. You look at the Eagles and how they can beat you so many different ways offensively, but they need Jalen Hurts healthy. The Lions have been amongst my favorite stories in sports in 2024, but we know how many injuries they are dealing with defensively. Some guys may come back in the postseason, but they're missing essentially an entire lineup, including at least 4 starters defensively. And it would be a shame if they now, after a 14-2 start, have to go on the road for this playoffs. But that's what they're facing going up against this Vikings team. A Vikings team that believes in Sam Darnold. And hell, I wouldn't even rule out the Packers as being a dangerous threat in this playoffs. Jordan Love is as good as any quarterback on the NFC side of things. They have as good of weapons, wide receiver-wise, as anybody. And their offense has received pretty much the same kind of boost that the Eagles have from the addition of Saquon Barkley. They've gotten that in Josh Jacobs. You've seen a resurgence in the running back position, especially on the NFC side of this playoff. So this is going to be just a survival of the fittest and one hell of a war to get through these NFC playoffs.
I'll be back.
Baseball's off-season is always interesting. Now, it's boring the first month and a half because due to the fact they really don't have a salary cap, despite all of these Steve Cohen rules that they try to put in place with luxury taxes and the salary thresholds. These players usually take their time in choosing their new locations. There's not the sense of urgency that you see out of the free agents in the other sports. Although when you get to the month of January, players start panicking if they don't have a home. That's why we've started to see a lot of these short-term deals in the last couple of years with opt-outs after the first or second year for them to become a free agent once again. But I've got to be honest with you, when it comes to my free agent bingo card coming into this off-season, I did not have the Arizona Diamondbacks as the team that was going to land Corbin Burnes as a free agent. I figured that he was going to end up on a bigger market club. We kept hearing rumors the last couple of weeks about possibly the Boston Red Sox, even after they had made the trade for Garrett Crochet. But then they go sign Walker Buehler to a 1-year free agent deal, and that kind of took them out of the mix of things. Thought new ownership in Baltimore, maybe they, after he had a big year for them, getting them into the postseason, and with how many guys they've got coming off of Tommy John surgery going into next season, would have looked for more security in that rotation, especially when you consider how good he was for them, how he's really a workhorse pitcher. You look at him since he came into the big leagues and became a full-time starter for the Milwaukee Brewers in 2020. He's third in Major League Baseball in total innings pitched. He's second in ERA with a 2.88 ERA amongst pitchers that have thrown at least 500 innings in that time. I thought maybe that would be more of a match. And as we know, you can never rule out the Dodgers for any free agent. They might, before all said and done, go with a 10-man starting rotation going into next year. Who knows? But I did not have the Diamondbacks as that team that would lock up Corbin Burnes. And listen, I know that they're one of those 9 to 10 teams that are dealing with a television issue in their local market, and that's taken away some, 25% salary or off-season spending that they normally have with that television revenue that could be coming in. But this is another reason why, when I see things like this, when I see a team like the Diamondbacks spend now $35 million a year on Corbin Burnes. Who knows? Some of it could be deferred to the back end of the deal. It drives me crazy then when I hear those fan bases whine and complain about wanting a salary cap, or those owners complaining, trying to cry poverty. You have the money to own a baseball team, and your team was in the World Series just a year and a half ago. Now he joins a rotation with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly that's very, very solid on paper. And you're going to need to be good in that rotation when you look at the 3 teams you're competing with in that division. You've got the Dodgers, the defending World Series champions, the Padres, who can score runs with the best of them and have a good rotation in their own right, although they're going to be doing it next year without Joe Musgrove. And then there's the San Francisco Giants, who I thought would have been that real destination for him. They could use another premium starting pitcher on that staff. They added offensively this offseason with Willy Adames coming in to play shortstop. Thought that maybe he would be the next item for Buster Posey on an off-season spending spree. So this one really caught me by surprise when I saw it on Saturday morning. What was a very pleasant surprise for yours truly as well. And I know he was not likely to come back to the Yankees, but as long as he was still a free agent, there was concern in the back of my mind, saying to myself, oh, did the Yankees get desperate as far as adding to their infield and circle back to Gleyber Torres? Well, guess what, Yankee fans? We don't have to worry about that. We don't have to be concerned with the most lackadaisical second baseman in baseball, the most unself-aware player that has played for the Yankees in the last 5 seasons to come back to the Bronx, as he signed a 1-year deal for the Detroit Tigers. And now you look at that Tigers team. It makes me laugh when I see comments by the Tigers general manager, and he's going out there saying, oh, we believe this makes us a better team defensively this coming year by putting this guy at second base. Did you watch him last year? He led the American League in errors by a second baseman. His power has gone down each of the last 2 years, and he's only 28 years old. And he is one of those players that, unless you 100% coddle him, unless you rock him to sleep at night, can become as emotionally distressed and emotionally in his head as any player we've seen in baseball. Now, you're going to be pairing him up the middle with the worst multi-year contract that currently exists in Major League Baseball. Probably the most lackadaisical shortstop in baseball in Javi Baez, who, remember, the Tigers only caught fire and became a postseason team snaking in as a wild card last year after Javi Baez got injured in late August. So this is going to be very fun. Could be ready to get the circus music ready for watching this double play tandem, who both of them think somewhere in the back of their minds they are the reincarnations of Joe Morgan and Ozzie Smith as far as slickness defensively. Oh, it's going to be very fun watching them make errors next season. Oh, Detroit. Hey, at least you have the Lions. And, I mentioned we're about to hit January. Can someone remind that fact to both Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso? Inform them both that those 6-7 year contracts that you guys were expecting as free agents, yeah, those are not likely going to be coming your way. Those are not likely going to be happening in your favor, especially in the case of Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso is a one-trick pony. At least in the case of Alex Bregman, you look at him, you say, oh, even as he declines in his 30s offensively, he is a Gold Glove caliber defensive third baseman. While Pete Alonso is a one-trick pony. He's a slugger. He's a guy that, he'll mash you 35 to 40 home runs in a season. Last year was kind of a down year offensively for him, as he only hit 34 home runs, and most of that came after the All-Star break. But he has so far clearly misread his market, thinking that he was going to top the contract that Paul Goldschmidt once upon a time signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, or top the deals that Mark Teixeira signed in the past with the New York Yankees, or that Prince Fielder got from the Milwaukee Brewers, or even that Freddie Freeman got from the Los Angeles Dodgers. You must remember, those guys had not yet hit 30, and all of those guys, with the exception of the case of Prince Fielder, were Gold Glove caliber defensive first baseman. Pete Alonso is a guy that any year now, a team is going to stick as their DH and say, hey, big guy, just worry about going out there and slugging 40 to 45 home runs for us. We'll worry about someone else patrolling first base. For him and Scott Boras to be still sitting there thinking that he's going to get an Aaron Judge level contract, he is out of his damn mind. Because Aaron Judge, despite his postseason struggles, is a 5-tool level player in Major League Baseball. Is a guy that not just hits home runs, but can hit for average, draws walks, and is a great defensive fielder, despite his error in the 5th inning of Game 5 of the World Series. You can't say that about Pete Alonso. He is not, an Adonis physically, and I'm not going to body shame him, but he's not a guy that you look at and say, oh, he'll be a Gold Glove level first baseman for us at 40. No, sooner rather than later, he's going to switch to being a DH. And that's not the kind of guy that you give a 6 to 7 year contract worth $35+ million a year. I think the Mets have been very fair in the deals that they have offered him. Last year, at some point, whether it was at the end of spring training or in the beginning of the regular season, they offered him 7 years for $1.58. He turned that down. And recently, they've offered him a 3-year pillow contract worth $90 million that I'm sure had opt-outs in it. And he's once again turned that down. At some point, he's going to have to really wake up and realize there may not be that seat at the table. There may not be that big market deal long term that he was expecting and have to rebuild his value, because these teams are now viewing next offseason. These teams that could potentially have a first base opening in the next 365 days are looking at the fact that, Vlad Guerrero is going to be a free agent. And you've got this sensational first baseman from Japan that is coming over here that everyone raves about and looks like he's going to be an offensive force for the next decade. So Pete Alonso and Scott Boras need to wake the hell up, because we are now just about 6-7 weeks away from spring training getting started. And it doesn't look like that big deal that he wanted is going to be there. And he needs to realize that and come to grips with reality before he has to just settle for something that may hamper him for the years to come.
I'll be back.
I love the overreactions that we see from people out there. I love how everyone tries to be Mr. Hot Take artist. Everyone tries to be the smartest guy in the room. Everyone tries to be that old man, get off my lawn, and to act like young athletes owe us something, owe us their 100% time and energy when they haven't made the big fortune yet, when they haven't made that deal that could set their family up for generations. And the latest example of that was this past Saturday when Iowa State defeated Miami in the annual classic, the annual tradition, a moment they throw the record books out for. That's right, everyone, the Pop-Tart Bowl, as they defeated Miami 42-41, largely because of the Miami quarterback, Cam Ward, pulling himself out of the game at halftime after a damn near record-setting performance in the first half. Throwing for $190, 3 touchdowns, set himself with many of Miami's offensive records that may stand the test of time for some years to come. But as we heard after the game, or when Amari Williams, the backup quarterback, when Amari Williams, the backup quarterback, came in the second half, their head coach, Mario Cristobal, said after the game, this was pre-planned. This is something that we were planning to do the whole time. This was a decision that Cam made, and we're going to keep that private. Cam Ward owes us nothing. Yeah, he's made a little bit of coin off the field with his NIL dealings, but he hasn't made that fortune yet. He hasn't gotten that first round contract that, if used financially well, if invested the right way, no matter how he does in his rookie deal, his family, his parents, his kids, they won't have to work much a day in their lives in the years to come. So for all of these people on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, all of the people out there that do podcasts that are ripping this guy, saying that in some way he disrespected the game, get the hell over yourselves. He owes you nothing. He gave you greatness during the regular season. It's one thing if he and the Miami Hurricanes would have made the college football playoff and he pulled them out of the game and that cost them a playoff game. Then you could be alarmed. But in a game like the Pop-Tart Bowl, I'm surprised he played at all. I'm surprised he even went. But he decided to continue a commitment to his team, but realize at the same time, I've got bigger things ahead of me. He's going to be, depending on where teams draft, a top 3 to 5 draft pick in this upcoming NFL draft. So for all of you acting like he some way disrespected the game, you are completely in the wrong. He did the right thing here. He needs to protect himself because, hey, what if he went out there in that second half and he blew out his ACL? We've seen plenty of guys play in these non-consequential bowl games, which, let's face it, they got way too many of them. As long as you go 6-6 in college football, you get rewarded with one of these nonsenses that anybody could buy the naming rights to. But for him to go out there, if he played the second half, blew out his knee, there goes his first round draft status. He might not even get drafted at all. So put yourselves in that kid's position. Put yourselves in that kid's family's position. He has to do what's best for him. He has to do what's best for his family, not what's best for your gambling bet if you are gambling at the Pop-Tart Bowl. Sorry, not sorry if you got offended by Cam Ward not playing the second half of that game, but he made the right call. And there's a fan base that is greatly disappointed as they may not have the chance to draft Cam Ward this coming year. And of course, I'm talking about you, New York Giant fans. Oh man, I'm watching yesterday and I'm keeping an eye on the New York Giants as they occasionally went to Giants Colts on the red zone. And I'm watching Drew Lock go out there and put on the greatest performance of his career, putting up 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. I'm watching Malik Neighbors look like one of, if not the best wide receiver in the sport yesterday, blowing by a Colts defense that looked afraid to make tackles when they were the ones with something to play for. They were the ones that still had a shot, an outside shot, but a shot at making the playoffs. And they allow a Giants team that has not scored 30 points in a game in almost 3 years to go out there and put up 45 against them. A Giants team that had not won a game at home this year. A Giants team that is missing their best player on defense in Dexter Lawrence, is missing countless members on their offensive line. A Giants team that released their quarterback around Thanksgiving and has had Malik Neighbors putting out cryptic comments on social media or through the media about his unhappiness with the way the Giants are playing. A Giants team that's had to watch fans buy banners to be flown over the stadium at the last couple of home games as they've gotten their doors blown off. And they go out there and kick the Colts' ass. And now Giant fans are panicking because Giant fans thought it was all set up for them. It was all right there for them to have the first overall pick in this draft, whether it be Brian Daboll and Joe Shane being in love with one of the quarterbacks coming out, either Shadir Sanders or Cam Ward, to draft them first overall, or you look at a Giants team that has multiple holes they need to fill, needs some help on the offensive line, could use an edge rusher, could use another corner, could use another wide receiver to be the Robin to Malik Neighbors' Batman. They could have taken that first overall pick and put it up for auction for teams that were in desperate need of a quarterback, like, say, the Tennessee Titans or the Las Vegas Raiders, and stockpiled themselves with a bevy of draft picks. And all of that has potentially gone out the window with the Giants winning this game. And you can't get mad at the players because players will never tank. The players that are out there on the field, half of them may not be on the Giants next year. Half of them may not even be in the NFL. So they're going to go out there, give their hardest, play from whistle to whistle to survive the gauntlet, survive the Game of Thrones that is life as one of the final 23 players on a 53-man NFL roster. You can't ask them to tank. You can't ask them to lay down. Organizations may do some tanking, may sit some certain guys and scramble things around to try to work in their favor. But players will never tank. And now with that win, which felt like a loss, the Giants fall from 1 to 4. And who knows, they could fall even further this coming week because they're behind now the Patriots, Titans, and Browns. The only one of those three teams that look right now like they're going to be drafting a quarterback is the Tennessee Titans. But you've got 5 other teams heading into week 18 that are 4-12, and 2 more that could potentially, if the Giants win against the Eagles, and that's entirely possible considering who knows who the Eagles are actually going to play on Sunday. If I'm the Eagles, would not play Saquon Barkley. You're definitely not playing Jalen Hurts. And you're probably not playing A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. But that would be the ultimate kick right up the ass if the Giants win in week 18. And then the Panthers lose. The Jets lose. Both of those teams leapfrog them. And now the Giants are picking 6, knowing that the Titans need a long-term solution at quarterback. The Panthers need a long-term solution at quarterback because it feels like they're ready to give up on Bryce Young. And the Jets of all teams, also need to draft a quarterback, especially with whatever they're going to do with this new regime. I mean, I'm pulling my already thinning hair out today at the thought that they may hire a new head coach before hiring a general manager with this nonsense that they're interviewing Ron Rivera later this week and may also talk to Rex Ryan before even hiring a new general manager. But that's another amount of stupidity that we can talk about another day. But the Giants, it was all set up for them. It was all set up for them to fail. And now they're succeeding at the very wrong time. And it has Giant fans upset, has Giant fans angry. But you know what? I'm in celebratory mode because I'm sick of the whining and complaining from Giant fans. In my lifetime, as long as I've been on this earth, you've been in 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. Hell, in the last 20 years, you've won 2 Super Bowls. Yeah, I get it. You've been a tire fire for the last several years, and that playoff win against the Vikings 2 years ago seems like the exception, not the rule of what recent Giants football is. But as a Jet fan, you think I want to hear your bitching and moaning? You think I want to hear your crying and complaining? You think I want to have any sympathy for you, considering you've had the success that my franchise only dreams about having? My team has the longest drought of missing the postseason. They have not made the playoffs since the 2010 season. Hell, I was barely over the legal drinking age the last time they made the playoffs. Giant fans, yes, your team has sucked the last couple of years. But in large part, this millennium, you've had it pretty good compared to some other teams. Yes, you haven't exactly been the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, even along the lines of the Broncos or the Green Bay Packers. But let's not act like you've been bereft of any success. Let's not act like we should be crying and holding a Make-A-Wish fund for you. You've had it pretty damn good outside of the last 5 years. And this is just what you have to go through when you don't have a franchise quarterback. Your previous franchise quarterback may get into the Hall of Fame this coming off season. But Giant fans, for you to be bitching and moaning, saying, oh, why are we the worst? No, you don't have it the worst. You haven't gone through the hell that Lion fans went to. Brown fans, Jet fans, even Jaguar fans, you want to throw them in the mix there. So quit the bitching and moaning, quit the belly aching, because we've seen it plenty of times in the past. Tanking means nothing. It's not about where you draft. It's about who you draft. And quite frankly, you would have been better off getting a top 3 pick and trading it because you are not a quarterback away. Hell, we don't even know if this is the general manager and head coach to develop that quarterback. So for you to think that it's the end of the world and you have it the worst of anybody, you really don't. And yesterday, hopefully, was your reality check. And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, December 30th, 2024. Everyone, please have a great night. Have a fun, safe, happy, healthy week, especially tomorrow night on New Year's Eve. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything crazy. And I'll talk to you guys again, same time next week when we enter 2025. Until then, peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody.
I have had enough of you!
Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, and I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.